Hi Tubies, here's Alexandra and welcome to the first video of 2023. Today I want to talk about the future of 3D printing and is it killing wargaming or is it the future of wargaming? Well, here we have some examples of 3D printed miniatures that I've recently produced and painted. And well, as you can see, they are really good quality miniatures. And well, I must say the technology for 3D printing is nowadays at a point where it is yeah, it's at the point for mass marketing. A few years back, maybe 2 or 3 years back, maybe 5 years back, 3D printing was something of a hobby of itself. So it was relatively expensive to start with 3D printing. The printers at a cost of about 3 to 500 euros, and it was quite expensive, and not everybody could afford a 3D printer. But nowadays, the quality of the printers is rising, and on the other hand, the price of the printers is falling because with each year, each printer company, like a Logo Mars, for example, or Anycubic, or however the companies are called, they keep evolving and they keep getting out better and better printers each year. And the older printers are back in their stock, in their warehouses, and they need to get rid of the stock, and so they lower the prices and lower the prices. So if you are keeping up with the 3D printing market, but are maybe 1 or 2 years behind that trend, you can afford a relatively good 3D printer nowadays for between 100 and 200 euros. And well, that's at the point where almost everybody can afford that, because let's face it, we are plastic crack nerds, and we are paying up to 150 euros for just one set of miniatures, like a demon, big demon, bloodthirster, for example, or maybe an imperial knight or something like that. And if you instead buy a 3D printer, you could technically print those models with that, and then you have the price for the printer has basically paid for itself. So nowadays, yeah, it's ready to be shipped to almost everybody. So almost everybody can afford a 3D printer. So, and as we can see, the quality of the prints is almost comparable. Let's start again. The quality of the prints is comparable to resin cast miniatures, depending on your printer. So, for example, I have a 2K printer here, the Anycubic Photon Mono, the Mono 1. It is a 2K printer, and as you can see here, you can almost say, yeah, this is a resin print, but also it could be a resin cast, because you can't really see the layer lines anymore. Yes, there are instances, for example here, at this weapon, you can see the layer lines, if you look hard enough. Yeah? But this is a 2K printer. Imagine if you have a 4K printer or an 8K. Then those layer lines would disappear completely. And yeah, those printers are also affordable. Let's say half a year from now or a year from now, you can get an 8K printer for 200 euros. And then those layer lines are gone. So at that point, the quality of your prints will surpass or even match the quality of resin cast models. And at that point, there is no justification for the high price of miniatures anymore. And at that point, GW and other companies have to think again about their pricing models, because everyone can produce those models. So, also, as you have may have seen me do, I have done a review of a specific resin that is flexible. Years before, I'm now in the 5th year of owning a 3D printer, and well, over the years, the resins got better and better and better, and now it is at a point, finally, where the resin is so good, it is comparable to plastic. Because previously, resin was brittle. You can see here, resin cast, and I can easily break that. See? And, well, there is now resin that is bendable, really bendable. And yeah, that's at a point where even the material that you're using is at the ultimate high. So why is not everybody printing? Well, 3D printing has a few cons also. Point number one, the initial setup is relatively high. So you have to get the printer, you have to get a UV light station to harden your prints. You have to get a good amount of isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol to clean your prints. You have to get the gloves and all the other materials you need to process your prints after you have printed them. And also you need the printer itself and so on. So this hurdle is relatively high, but it is, like I said before, it's lowering and lowering and lowering, and the ceiling is getting at the point where everybody can afford it. They just have to overcome the hurdle in their brain to make it click, and yes, I want a 3D printer. So then number two, the fumes, the toxicity of the resin itself. Yes, not everybody has a ventilation system in their house built or a room spare to print in that they can ventilate and stuff, or maybe a garage where they could set up the printer, or maybe down in the basement. Not everybody has a basement. Apparently, America is a country where not almost everybody has a basement. Well, here in Germany, we almost always have a basement to set up a printer, or maybe a balcony, but not everybody has access to this. So this is a hurdle that you have to overcome. Also, the next point is for 3D printing, there is a steep learning curve that you have to go through. It's not like in the advertisements, yeah, you have the 3D printer and boom, you can print all the best miniatures. No, there is some things that you need to learn before you can actually print stuff properly. You need to learn about the curing times of the resins. You need to learn how to make the supports for your miniatures. What are supports? Why are they there? Why can't I just print on the print bed like with a plastic printer? And yeah, then stuff like the print bed is the miniatures are not sticking to the print bed. Why is that? Troubleshooting problems with your printer. So like I said, I had the 3D printer now for over 5 years now, but for the first 4 years of that, that was purely troubleshooting and learning for me. So that hurdle gets better and better because the printers are getting better, and also the companies are seeing the troubleshooting issues, and they try to counterbalance that with inbuilt systems into the printers. But nevertheless, even the best printers will not produce good prints if you don't know what you're doing. So that's another hurdle. Another thing that I've talked about already is space. You need the space. Next point, the quality and the price for STL files, so the files that you need to print your miniatures, varies a lot. So there are several websites out there that provide services for miniature printing, that you can buy STL files there, and you can also sell your STL files there. And there are sources for free STL files. The big difference is, let's say you have the website Thingiverse. Thingiverse is a good website for free STL files. But what does that mean, free STL? Yeah, Thingiverse is a website where people that are designers in training, I would say, mostly go to publish their models and show them to the world, but they are in a state where they are not worthy to be sold, meaning they are lackluster, either in the quality department, so the prints itself are not the best, the detail is not the best, and so you're just a beginner in designing, or they are simply not supported at all, or they are just imported game files that they have thrown into Blender and clicked on a button and made it an STL file, and those files are not really ready to be printed because they have floating islands in the miniature that cannot be printed separately because they have no connection to the miniature itself, or other issues that arise with that. So if you're going to Thingiverse and search for sculpts there, be prepared that not every miniature you find there is in a good state to be printed. On the other hand, you have websites like My Mini Factory, for example, where you have miniatures that are sold there, and they are definitely tested, and most of them are pre-supported, so you don't have to fiddle around with the supports in your slicing software and try to get the perfect slice for supported miniatures. No, they are pre-supported. You can just put them on your print bed, and they're good to go. But they cost money, and the price for those miniatures vary a lot. So over the years, the miniature prices for cast miniatures and plastic miniatures are relatively stable. Okay, we all know that GW is rising the price curve over and over and over again, but every other manufacturer is basically aiming at the same price range around about. Make it a little bit cheaper or half the price, but generally the public knows how much a miniature should cost. On My Mini Factory, that's not the case. You have there some amazing artists and sculptors or companies that produce miniatures, where they throw in, like for example here, these robots here. They come with 7 different bodies and 20 heads and 16 arm options and 5 backpack options, and the entire set is €10. And then you have miniatures where you have a single infantry soldier for €5. That's not the relativity that it should have. Some miniatures, single miniatures, 20 euros. And then you have bundles of miniatures for 20 euros. So what do you go for? Also, the quality itself of the miniatures varies a lot. So, here, the most sculptors are stuck in the 1990s. So, for example, look at this miniature here. This is definitely not at the quality status that Games Workshop miniatures nowadays have. This miniature, you would, I would guess, if I wouldn't know that this is a resin miniature printed in 2022 or 2023, I would just guess, yeah, this miniature looks like it came from 1990. And that's with the design process of the miniatures itself. The sculptors nowadays have to learn the creativity and all the stuff that the miniature companies have taught themselves over 50 years of miniature production and designing. And they are not keeping up with the technology. So the technology of 3D printing is evolving faster than the miniature sculptors can keep up and producing miniatures for that. And most of the time, the miniature sculptors are good at sculpting the miniatures, but not at designing the miniatures, if you know what I mean. So most of the time, let's just say, for example, one-page rules. They make miniatures for their rule system. Most of them are based off GW miniatures, but they have their own design. And to be frank, I hate those miniatures. Most of them look ugly as hell. Why is that? Because they are good sculptors that work on those miniatures, but they are horrible designers that don't know what they are doing. Yeah, there are here and there miniatures from those companies that look good, but not all of them. I'm looking through my mini factory on a daily basis right now, looking for sculptors that are really, really good. And there's only a handful of them that I would consider, yes, they are at the pulse of the sculpting process. But most of them are not, definitely not. And that's another problem. But they will get better over time, because it's the same for marketing everywhere. You can produce a product and throw it out into the world, but people will not buy those. And because they don't buy it, the people will either, not die out, but they will stop producing this kind of miniatures, and they have to learn how to design. And this might take some time, but not long. I bet you this process will maybe take another 2 years. And at that point, you can see the quality in the prints change drastically. And I think now is the time to jump onto this train. So the next part is 3D printing has not a game support outside of one-page rules. As far as I know, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there are not a lot of miniature companies out there that make their own game. please correct me, but I can't find any other game company out there that makes their own miniatures for 3D printing outside of one-page rules. There are miniature companies out there that make game systems with miniature agnostic rules. So they make a game and they say, okay, pick whatever miniature you want. And but there are no other companies outside of one-page rules that I know of that make a game system and produce 3D printable files for your game. So yeah, that's another con. Right now, we don't have those, and we need those. So, so if you're a game company out there that is miniature agnostic, maybe try jumping into the miniature 3D printing market and produce your own miniatures. Then the next point I have here on my little cheat sheet is that there are too many GW clones out there. Most of the miniatures I find on those sites are just blatant copies of Games Workshop miniatures. Like those here. Don't get me wrong, those are great miniatures. Here, this Chaos, they call them the Valiant and the Vile. Those look great, but if you look at them, this is obviously a copy of a Games Workshop miniature design for the Blight Kings. Yeah. Those here, the robots. Those are Skitarii robots. Here. This is a design that should emulate a Skitarii. It is called the Scavengers. Scavenger Ranger and Scavenger Robot Builder. But they are obviously copies of GW models. This is not something bad in its own right. So if you take inspiration from a miniature company and you make your own versions of their miniatures, so they're obviously completely different miniatures, and GW can't sue them because they are not advertised as AdMac miniatures, and also they look completely different to AdMac miniatures, but they're similarly in the appearance, so GW can't sue them, but they are nevertheless a GW clone. And what we need is independent manufacturers who create new armies that doesn't have a game system applied to them. Okay, that has a problem in its own right. They won't sell because people want miniatures that they can recognize. But then we have the problem again with games that have not an 3D printing support. So we need more miniature agnostic games that make their own miniatures. So that you can say, okay, I want to play fleet-based space combat 3D printing, whatever the name be. And they design miniatures for this game, purely on 3D miniatures. You can't buy them in the store, no, you must print them. But they have a fully supported game system. We need more of those miniatures, and not just blatantly GW clones. Because that would widen the variety of miniatures that we can have. So my next point is miniature styles clash. If you I have seen many videos online about, I've printed an entire army of Space Marines or an entire army of Drukhari and whatnot, and I have grabbed files here from Thingiverse and from my manufactory and from this and from that, and they have combined and painted the entire army, and then on the tabletop you look at them and they don't fit. It's like you take an Eldar and throw it into an Imperial Guard army and say this is an Imperial Guardsman, but he looks totally different. And so it is when you mix and match miniatures from different 3D sculptors and put them all into the same army, because the styles totally clash about each other. So I could use those miniatures and throw in some Games Workshop miniatures from AdMag, and throw in some other AdMag stuff from other sculptors. For example, let's see, 1 second. I found this miniature here on Thingiverse. Little tank with a servo skull and a big plasma cannon. Yeah, this would fit into an AdMag army, but the style of this and that here, they don't fit together. This is a totally different miniature. And this is what I mean. The styles of the miniatures will clash. Yeah. And my last point is that we need accessible tools to work on the miniatures. Right now there are some 3D programs out there that are free, and you can use them, like Blender, for example. But it is a very, very, very complicated program with thousands of different layers to the program itself, that a noob who picks up this program doesn't even know where to begin, how to operate this program. It is like you put somebody, some random guy, into the cockpit of a Boeing 747 and say, okay, land this thing. And you have all the different tools and blinking lights and switches and gears, and you don't know where to start. And this is how you feel if you are stuck into Blender. There is an online tool named TinkerKD that you can use, and it's easy and super nice to work with, but it has its limits. We need a program that is the middle ground between TinkerKD, that is easy accessible, and Blender, a program that is powerful to make 3D sculpts, but we need a middle ground so that the normal person can produce miniatures or make alterations to their miniatures. I have seen videos where people sorry about that, are kit bashing their miniatures. They take the sculpt and they cut off the arm and place a different arm from a different STL file. They bend the knees and make 3D kit bashing with the miniatures. I want to do that, but I need a program to work with that, and there is none available to me. So TinkerKD is nice and easy to work with some generic cubes and spheres and tubes and stuff, and you can combine them and reduce them, and a little bit of cutting here and there, but it is not powerful enough to just simply bend an object. I would love to make here this you know the icons for Space Marines on the shoulder pads? This here. I have found a file for pre-bend icons for Ultramarines and for these arrows here. The tactical arrow. but there is not enough for other. Here, this is how it looks on a Space Marine. You can make a nice little Space Marine, tactical Space Marine, or an intercessor here with an icon. Now, with a 3D printer. This is awesome, but I lack the tool to make myself a Dark Angels icon. I want that for my Crimson Vow Space Marines. But there is not a Dark Angel icon out there that is pre-bent. And I can't throw an icon into TinkerKD and bend that icon. I can't do that, and I don't know how to use Blender and do this there. Of course, I could sit here and watch YouTube tutorials for hours and hours until I find the right one that teaches me how to bend a surface and correctly align it for a shoulder pad. I'm not a sculptor, but I would like to have a tool that is able to do that easy. I don't need the super 3D software inbuilt into Blender to make videos and render entire super scenes. No, I just want an easy-to-use 3D tool. Yeah, so this is my ramble about 3D printing and the future of 3D printing. I hope you liked this video and watched it to the end. I would be very glad if you could leave a thumbs up. This alone would help my channel a lot, because the YouTube algorithm is throwing me under the bus lately. Normally my videos get around 1,000 views. Nowadays they get barely 500 views, if any, and I'm very happy for each comment, every thumbs up. You don't need to subscribe. Subscribers don't watch my videos anymore. I have over 37,000 subscribers. None of them is watching my videos, so don't even bother. But a like would help me a lot. Thanks, and we see us in the next video. You're Alexandra. Bye.